disaster upon disaster, hitting harder and pressing faster. We have lost our identity, disgraced all of our decency. We take pride in our humility and in the loss of our virginity. They demoralized our military. Wake up, here comes the enemy. But don't bail out. Hold your ground. Please don't jump. We'll ease you down.
Barring divine intervention, the elite will do what you're about to hear. The standard currency of the world is crude oil. It is not the dollar. It's not the euro. It's not the won. It's not the pound. It's crude oil. Crude oil. Please put it down. It's the most important object out there. The Muslim Brotherhood are being supported by the elite of the world who have the crude oil in the palm of their hand. Please note this. What you saw happen in Egypt, what's happening right now in Libya, what is taking place in the United Arab Emirates is going to spread throughout the entire Arab world. Most all of OPEC. Now, OPEC includes a few other nations beside the Arab world. But all over the Arab world, it's going to continue because they are being supported by the elite of the world. The elite of the world plan to double-cross the Arabs. I hope you've never heard this anywhere before. This will be so new to you until I'm sure you're going to be startled, as you have by many of the other things that these people have told me. Please note again, the Arab world, the Middle East in particular, OPEC in general, are going to be double-crossed by the elite of the world. And if any of the Arabs out there are listening to me, I hope your princes, your sheikhs and your sheiks and the people of those countries will listen to you, because 70 years ago you were nothing but nomads, roaming the deserts riding camels. You're going back to that again. I know. And I must explain what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing later, but I won't take the time right now. Why? How are you going to be double-crossed? You remember that Mr. Kissinger went abroad in 1977 through 81 during the Carter administration, cut a deal with every then-producing major oil country in the Middle East, and the deal was, we will buy your oil. We will no longer produce from America's oil fields. Oh, a few little wells here and yonder. Yeah, we'll allow them to go, but nothing big whatsoever. The North Slope of Alaska, we'll just tap a little bit of it, but we're not going to get the big ones. We will buy from you if you will do the following. Number one, you must take a certain portion of what we buy oil from you with and buy our Federal Reserve issues of T-bills and securities. This, in turn, paid the interest on the national debt, which at that point they began to bring in their new world order, put America into the debt that is in today, and bring America down to the status of a third world country. It was all planned back as far back as I knew in 1971. They knew it a long time prior to that. Now, how are they going to double-cross the Arabs? The dollar will be dead by the end of 2012. Mark my words. This was given to me by them. It is prediction. Put it down. And whenever it does, what's going to happen to those billions and billions of dollars, maybe in some cases trillions of dollars, worth of T-bills and Federal Reserve issues that have been sold to the oil-producing countries according to the deal that was cut by Kissinger in 77 through 81. What will happen to that paper? Please remember the previous show that I was on with Alex Jones. I was told if it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. This should be a classical statement because it was told to me by Mr. Prom before he died. Chaplain, if it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And when the Muslim Brotherhood, supported today by the elite of the world, continue to cause conflict all over the Middle East as they have in Egypt and in Libya, and it will spread from one country to the other, mark my words, none of them will be exempt. And when it does, the oil will not be supplied from over there. The dollar, because when oil goes to $200 a barrel, the American economy is going to be so drastically affected. You think we have problems now financially. the dollar will collapse toward the end of 2012, and when it does, all of the paper, please, folks, hear this, especially Arabs out there, the dollar collapses, the paper of the Federal Reserve will likewise do the same, and when it does, the double cross of the Arabs, which was started way back in 77, the double cross of the Arab world will take place. They will be so angry with us. You think that the Muslims have a bone to pick with us right now. You haven't seen anything. Just wait till the dollar crashes. They're double-crossed. They lose their paper wealth. They become again what they were 50 to 60 years ago. And are you ready for what's going to happen at that point? This is the reason that Alex has allowed me on his show today, because I've just been told this a matter of well, it was hours when I talked with you last night, Alex, but now it's been a few days. I was told that at that point we will not be able to get our crude oil from the Middle East and many of the other OPEC oil-producing countries, and in turn, the elite plan to open America's own oil fields that they have known. They've known for 50 years that they were there. They knew about the North Slope of Alaska. They knew about Gull Island, which I recorded in my book, and they threatened me never to talk about it again. And Mr. Fromm's gone now, so I'm doing it and hoping that this won't cause problems. And the Arctic Wildlife Refuge, they will open America's own oil fields, including the Bakken Reserve, including the reserve that is under the Rocky Mountains. Have you heard about it? 2 trillion barrels. It was announced on August the 8th, 2005. President Bush talked about it, but they have not produced it yet. All of these oil fields, there is going to be a mad rush to oil production in America because we cannot get it from abroad when the Arabs and OPEC are double-crossed, and in turn, you are going to see America begin to produce from its own oil fields, but what's going to happen? By that time, you'll be paying $7 and $8 a gallon for gasoline, and it will be $200 a barrel. Our dollar will have already collapsed, and they will bring in, mark my words, a world currency. It is all a part of the new world order in order to accomplish what they want, Alex.
Well, Lindsey, I mean, just looking at the news here, Gaddafi declares revolt with tanks and planes. He's defying the revolt with tanks and planes. In rambling speech, blames tyranny of U.S., free drugs for youth, what the CIA do in the 60s. He went on to say he will never leave Libya. He will be a martyr at the end. White House has nothing to say. Muslim Brotherhood says kill Gaddafi. All they want is the power. Again, they don't completely work for the globalists. They're just being used. Continuing, intelligence agency jamming TV signals. Gaddafi's blocking Al Jazeera into the country and over much of the Middle East with a powerful jammer, saying that it's British intelligence, which a lot of reports show it is. And it's admitted, and even Medvedev in Russia is saying that this is staged and a destabilization program, and that the Middle East could be in flames for years. And so this will be used as the excuse to start to change the deal, to cheat the Arabs. That's from the Arab perspective. To stop propping up the dictators, to develop the fields here, and getting into the dollar being phased out. More on the information that the former oil company CEO told you on that front, and the rising of China to replace us.
There will be no shortages whatsoever on grocery store shelves. Now, when I said this for the first time about 9 months, I was laughed at. There were many of your survivalists out there, many of them my very personal friends, that said, Lindsey, you're crazy. We're going to have a shortage of food. I said, no, we're not. Why? I'd been told it. What are we all going to have a shortage of? The grocery store shelves will be full, but you're going to go hungry. Why are you going to go hungry? Not because there's a lack of groceries out there. Even with the cold that we've had that swept down into Mexico and Florida and other places that our vegetables are produced, there's no shortage whatsoever on the grocery store shelves right now. Why not? The new world order can bring it in from anywhere in the world. What it's caused? Causes the prices to go up. Do you realize that in 1 week's time, garlic, a simple little thing like a garlic bulb, went up 100% last week alone? Do you realize that crude oil this morning went up $8 a barrel.
All right, stay there. Stay there. We're going to come back and get back into the dollar situation in China and what's going to happen. This segment's short, but just boiling it down, because you told me even more last night, how the dominoes will fall. The Middle East, then the oil price, then the opening up for exploration. Did he give you dates? Then this rise of China, who we now know is basically running our government. Even the Associated Press is reporting that, using their debt they hold on us. The cheating of the Arabs. Break it down briefly for us.
Time frame. The end of 2012, you will see the dollar collapse. So I've been told by the end of 2012. That means that the Arabs are going to be double-crossed by the end of 2012, sometimes prior to that. Whenever they are, we don't get the oil supply from the Middle East. This is going to be a major crisis time for America, because not only is it a crisis for you at the gas pump who are having to drive your vehicle to work every day, but it's going to be a crisis for the truckers, the airlines, and a major crisis for the military of the United States of America. And that's the reason that they're so concerned about the Fifth Fleet right now over near around Dubai and that part of the world. So you have a time frame of the end of 2012. One person said to me this morning, they said, Chaplain, it's going to take place in 2011. It was the talk show host called me before your show, Alex, and I said, no, it's not. I said, I've been given the time at the end of 2012. You'd better be ready. They will do this by then. China is the big one. China just made an agreement with Russia. Now, this puts China out of the picture altogether as far as crude oil and natural gas is concerned. China just cut an agreement with Russia. Russia last year became the #1 oil supplier of the world. Saudi Arabia took a second place because of Russia's super deep wells, which I've dealt with that subject before on Alex's show. And as a result, China now has agreed with Russia to buy all of the crude oil and all of the natural gas that they want. China will not, do you hear this? China will not be affected by the Middle East crisis because they're now getting their oil from Russia. We will not be able to get it there because they're supplying so much to China. And as a result, we will have to turn to our own oil fields here in America. A time frame that you must be aware of is the end by the end. That means you better be ready a long time before. If you want groceries, you better go to the grocery store and buy 6 months to a year's supply right now, because the dollar is going to collapse in such a manner. See, when crude oil went up this morning, $8 a barrel, it wasn't the crude oil that went up. It was the purchasing power of the dollar that went down. And when that garlic, which went up 100% in 1 week. I know, a simple little garlic bulb. You housewives can see this. You went to the grocery store, it went up 100% in 1 week. What did that do? It wasn't the garlic that changed. There's still as many cloves in that garlic as there ever was. It was the dollar that you purchased the garlic with that is gone down in purchasing power, regardless of what the Federal Reserve is telling you. You had better go and do what you're going to do, and do it now, and get something for your household and prepare for what's going to happen. China will not be affected by this fuel crisis because they're getting it out of Russia, and they're not using the American dollar for the
All right, so the globalists are on the move. I want to finish up with this rise of China, the decline of the U.S., and then the rebirth of the U.S. Let's finish up with that. And glad to have Lindsey Williams here with us. I want to get to calls and not shortchange them. But Lindsey, finishing up with the time frame, you said they're going to rise China up, then they're going to start the exploration here in the next few years. Then you're going to see a big decline in the U.S. As they suck everything out of the economy. Everything is based on petrol, based on oil, and this is going to be a vertical integration, a consolidation of wealth. But then your source said that later they're going to build the U.S. back up. What's the time frame on that?
Did not give a time frame on that. It'll all depend on how they're able to open up what they want to open up, the advancement of China. Keep in mind that if it's written on a piece of paper, it's worth the paper it's written on. And this is the way that they will double-cross the Arabs. Remember also that George Bush Sr., Daddy Bush, was the ambassador to China. Prior to that time, please go back and look this up and get some information on it. Research it for yourself. I don't have time to give it today, even though we'll do a whole section on this. George Bush Sr., Daddy Bush, the great Mr. New World Order, was the ambassador ambassador to China from the United States of America years ago. Prior to his being ambassador, China was a closed society. The Great Wall of China divided them from everybody, and China did not do business with the outside world. George Bush Sr., Daddy Bush, opened up China to the world and made it the great power that it is today, and he was the first one to announce that there would be a new world order.
And the globalists have done everything they can to position the industry, the power, to have China be the owner of our debt, teamed up with the private Federal Reserve, the second biggest owner. And now, we covered it earlier, if you guys can find that AFP or AP headline, China secretly using influence on the SEC, on the Treasury Department, on the federal government to let them buy up U.S. companies, to let them create oligopolies, to have the SEC leave them alone, to allow them to basically buy this country up. There's AFP. Cables show China used debt holdings to press U.S. Leaked diplomatic cables vividly show China's willingness to translate its massive holdings of U.S. debt into political influence on issues ranging from Taiwan's sovereignty to Washington's financial policy, dealing with Chinese companies in the U.S., and it just goes on and on and on. I mean, this is the globalist plan. We've been made dependent. We're being taken over. Is this not high treason by the globalists, Lindsey?
It positively is, and the thing that the average American doesn't realize is that when we moved our industry to China, for instance, General Motors, whom you, as a taxpayer, bailed out in the United States of America, they were bankrupt. General Motors and Chrysler, you bailed them out. General Motors will sell more automobiles in China this year than they sell in the United States of America. Now, what happens when General Motors, Chrysler, Caterpillar, the biggest one on the New York Stock Exchange, Caterpillar, whenever these companies move to China and build these multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar plants, do you realize that the agreement with China is that, yes, we'll let you come to China, yes, we'll give you cheap labor, but you must give us all of your patents. Did you hear this? Boeing, when they moved to China, they had to give all of their patents. Their patent rights.
Well, Clinton gave them, along with Rumsfeld, when he was in private companies in the mid-'90s, the ICBM secrets, the submarine-launched Trident secrets. This is a total sellout. Now, we've got Mohammed in the Middle East, and I want to go to him here in just a moment and other callers. But, Lindsey, this is too... I promised to go to calls. I'm going to have to get you back up sometime this week or next week just to talk about solutions.
Yeah, really, I have only covered a fraction. I mean, I haven't even told of the time that Ken Fromm was fired because of my book, Energy Non-Crisis. I haven't even dealt with the only person that ever told this story apart from me, which was, by the way, please go and research this. In American Opinion, back in 1980, Alan Stang came to Alaska after Ken Fromm had been fired. Ken was so mad that he gave him everything. It's the only time it's ever been written, and he called him Horse's Mouth. And then what happened after that? Read the book, The Three Sisters. I mean, we've even skimmed the surface.
And you
today.
got Fromm to go on stage at a public event in California. The oil execs, the CEO and another came in and sat down, totally freaked Fromm out. See, this has all been on record. He just didn't want you to get into it publicly with the new info. Now that he's died, you can. It's just so incredible. But let's go to phone calls. Let's talk to Brother Rakal in Cairo, Egypt. And we've confirmed his number. That's where he's calling from. Mr. Rakal, tell us what's going on.
How you doing, Alex? It's good to be talking to you. I've been a long time listener while I was in the States. How are you doing today?
I'm good. So what are you witnessing there in Cairo, and what's your view on what Lindsey Williams is talking about?
Well, let me say this. I want to say this to all the people in the States, if they didn't know. You got almost 100,000 Americans living in Egypt and frequently visit Egypt. And I'll say this. Not one American was harmed, a citizen, none of us. And it was surprising to hear the families who were concerned about their people, the way America was portraying what was happening in Egypt. And I want to say this, Alex. I want to go into what the Egyptians are saying here.
Yeah, do the Egyptians know this is a staged event?
Absolutely. let me tell you, Alex, the Egyptians know nothing about a group called the Muslim Brotherhood. They know nothing of this. A matter of fact, they say it's like CIA or American. Okay? That's number one. Number two, I would like to say this to all the people out there. The majority of people who was in this so-called Liberty Square, the majority of these people, Alex, had no idea about a revolution. They was invited there they were busted, paid to go there. And if you know, if you ever frequent the Middle East, you'll know that these Arab people who are family, they frequent places together. They'll be outside all day, hundreds at a time. So it's nothing to get a few thousand people in a square.
No, they said millions, and it was 50,000, according to experts that looked at the crowd. But Google admits they were there for the CIA. They admit that they sent in al-Baradi the week before it all started. Again, we're not saying Mubarak was good. The point is, they are admittedly overthrowing it as the first domino, as we said a month ago, to put the Middle East in fire. So the Egyptian people know what's going on.
Hey, another thing I want to bring out, Alex, and you're right on there, and I want to say this, Alex. One thing that the Western world is not saying about Mubarak is the fact that there's many Egyptians who wanted Mubarak to stay. I'll tell you this. Mubarak is staunchly against the eugenics program and has been on record for this for years.
They got mad at him in the early 90s when he wouldn't start sterilizing people.
Exactly. And the babies are healthy there. The people are healthy there. And I'll tell you, the water is not the cleanest in the world, but these people are fairly healthy compared to any other people in the Western world. I'll tell you this, they're very family-oriented. And on top of that, there's another thing that people didn't know there. And it surprised me while I was here, Alex, is that there's many Americans, after leaving the military, come to the Middle East, get contracts, and work within the military, make big money over there. And Americans come over and actually work under these people in the Egyptian military. So there's a lot of facets to this that a lot of brothers and sisters, and yourself, you're right on point. For you not to be in the Middle East, you may have some good contacts because you're not in the Middle East, and obviously you're able to articulate what's going on even in the Middle East. But I want to say this. Americans have no idea what's going on the outside of America, and you don't know until you go someplace else.
Exactly. But any comments on what Lindsey Williams is saying?
A matter of fact, I want to thank Lindsey because the last thing he said is key. The last thing he said about what's going on with the oil and how they're going to double-cross them. And let me tell you, all the Egyptians and the other Middle Easterns knew that it was staged, and now they're starting to realize that they were props in America and the Western world's games. And it's not going to end out like they think it is. These people, have some level of integrity and fight in them. And I'll tell you, when they find out that they were used, it's going to be all-out anarchy on another level. I don't think the Western world can control it.
All right. No, I certainly, the dominoes were already there of folks being angry. Now they've triggered it. Google, I mean, here is on record, and now Google just admits they're this government front. It is so incredible. Thank you for the call, Brother Rakal from Cairo. Lindsey Williams, your comments on what he was saying.
Well, I am so glad that he confirmed the fact that the Arabs realize they are going to be double-crossed. They aren't double-crossed yet. The big double-cross has yet to take place whenever the dollar collapses and they lose all the paper that they've invested in for many, many years, and they become literally paupers overnight.
And to be clear, this is going to double-cross Americans and others, but we see China and others moving away from the dollar right now. But your source is saying end of 2012, the dollar is going to not be the world reserve currency. What else did he say about that? Any specifics?
Yes, by the end of 2012, you'll see this double cross with the OPEC oil-producing countries. They, in turn, will literally become enraged with America. The caller just from Egypt was exactly right. America will not be able to control it. Our president has made some drastic mistakes.
But that's part of the plan, is enraging them. That way the oil gets shut off.
That's exactly right. And then the price of crude oil will be up to $200 a barrel so that the oil companies, the elite of the world, as I call them, can become, you think they're rich now. You haven't seen anything. Wait until oil gets to $200 a barrel, and they produce it from America.
Oh, it's a giant tax directly to the globalists. It's a giant tax directly to the globalists. It's incredible. Hey, buddy.
Hey, so a question is, I mean, this seems typical playbook that they create the chaos and they play both sides, and they create their order out of chaos. Are they besides the Middle East, do they plan on spreading this to here in the U.S.?
Oh, absolutely. They're going to bring in economic things that are going to cause turmoil here. That's why they got the police state in place as the solution, because when people riot and burn stuff up, that makes the economy get worse. Then the globalists get to buy it up for pennies on the dollar and then be the heroes rolling out their federal police and the rest of it. As Lindsey said, the globalists like to buy things when they're at rock bottom prices. Lindsey?
Yes, everything you've just said is true. I haven't even had time to get into this part of it all, but what you're going to see in the Middle East is you're going to see a repeat of Egypt, you're going to see a repeat of Libya, all over the Middle East. One of the last ones will be Saudi Arabia, and no telling what will happen there. At that point, you're going to see the crude oil prices. Now, it will spread to America. We just had a very, very small idea of this in Wisconsin this past week. I know nothing about whether that was incited or not. I do not think it was, but you'll see a repeat of problems across America, just as you're going to see in the Middle East.
Well, they're shutting down half the schools in Detroit. Many cities are laying off more than half their police and sheriff's deputies, and we haven't even begun to get into this depression yet.
That's exactly right. It is going to spread to America from over there. Folks, please be prepared. You definitely need to do everything that you're going to do and do it immediately. I don't know how to say anymore, Alex, except that, yes, what's in the Middle East will spread to America, except in a different form.